So Rabbi Yitzchak Adlerstein, thanks for joining us here on Jerusalem Dateline. A big news this week has been the boycott by Ben & Jerry's of the occupied Palestinian territories. Why is this such an ominous sign to you?
So I think a lot of people have underestimated the impact of this. There are people who are just angry out of a sense of Jewish pride. There are people who see this as a slap in the face of Israel. There are people who say that how can you do this at a time when there's mounting anti-Semitism globally? You're just giving legs to some of the stereotypes about Israel that allow anti-Semites to beat up Jews in the streets of America and other places. But that's not the whole story. The real story in my mind is that even though Ben & Jerry's is a relatively small company, but it has vast name recognition. It's a household name in all of America. To link Ben & Jerry's, to link that corporate image with the idea that Israel is a colonialist, brutal oppressor of a country that was stillborn and shouldn't be here, that's the real problem. Because once one company does that, then other companies will find it much easier to follow suit. I'm not worried as much about the immediate economic impact, but it's the impact of the mindset that we have another reality for Americans to swallow with the evening news and maybe a scoop of Ben & Jerry's, and that is Israel is the bad guy and the Palestinians are the good guys.
What does this say about the current culture in the U.S., the wokeness culture, if you will?
So that's the other part of the issue, and that's why I'm so happy you invited me. I saw your coverage, and we love your friendship. Believe me, we know that the only allies of this state, dependable allies on the face of the earth, are traditional Christians. And we so much value and appreciate that. But this is where it's an issue not just for Jews, and not just for people who are proud of the state of Israel, but for everyone. As much as people think this was BDS pressure, and BDS, you know, they're a minor irritation, but there was BDS involvement, but in the end, you had a woke board, what's called the Independent Board of Directors of Ben & Jerry's. They had no say about the operations of the company, but they represented the social justice conscience. And there you had a few young executives who weren't BDS by birth, but had swallowed over decades what is routinely conveyed by left-wing media, by MSM, by certainly in campuses across America. And a lot of us thought that, you know, this is just another case of intersectionality, and we're up in arms about whether they're going to bring CRT into the schools over our objections. And we thought, well, we'll find a modus vivendi, we'll be able to live with it. But this is an example of how wokeness has penetrated the boardrooms of America. These are young CEOs. These are people who are not just doing what people might have done 10 years ago. Have a couple of bean counters in the room and say, well, how much do we earn if we do, and how much do we lose if we don't? These are people with a sense of mission, and their mission is the defeat of the Jewish state. They have not taken parallel measures against China for what they've done to the Uyghurs, or the closing of churches there. They have not intervened they have not asked for intervention in Turkey. They have done nothing about child soldiers in Africa. It's just the Jewish state that's lined up in their crosshairs. And you have to ask why. And partly anti-Semitism, but partly it's the idea that Israel is a power, just like the United States, and power is diabolical. We're out to make a new world order in which power should not be wielded by those who have it, but shared among the people. It used to be called Marxism, and it failed, and it meant the deaths of tens of millions of people, but nobody's learned the lesson.
Yeah. So what should traditional Christians do about this boycott? How can they respond?
So the boycott is an important emotional part of people's reaction, but the most important thing for people to do is to speak on the local level to marketers, to go over to their manager of their local supermarket or grocery store and say, hey, I'm just putting a suggestion forward. Ben & Jerry's now sticks in the throats of lots of people who shop here. And this is why. And they're promoting global anti-Semitism. The boycott against Israel is illegal in over 30 states. But this shouldn't be out there. We're not telling you, we're going to boycott you unless you remove Ben & Jerry's from your shelves. But we'd appreciate it if maybe you can downgrade them, maybe you can give them a little less favorable place on display. It'll be a gesture of solidarity with a good part of your community, because I have many friends who feel the same way. I think right now that's the most important thing that people could do.
Yeah. Final question, Rabbi, they're at the Simon Wiesenthal Center. In a broader view, beyond the Ben & Jerry's boycott, how do you see the rise of anti-Semitism because of the boycott? It's one example, but also in the U.S. and around the world.
Well, the Holocaust had a chilling effect on the expression of anti-Semitism, but that couldn't last forever, and it didn't. So gradually over years, it became more acceptable for people not to get rid of certain things in the comm boxes, for people on radio shows to permit things that to air that wouldn't have. And then there's social media. Social media has been the real oil of the machinery of anti-Semitism, because you could have splinter groups and extremist groups, and they were small splinter groups. There were tens of thousands, literally tens of thousands of them. But today, everybody has access to everybody. And they're people who are influencers on social media. They're not professors of history. They don't necessarily have a moral conscience, but they get to shape the attitudes of Americans and of your children and grandchildren and mine. And that's where we really have to figure out some way. And in my mind, I don't have a solution for America other than your community. The only people who have a sense of conviction and morality and saying, I don't care what they all say. Social media, Instagram, influencer, I live by scripture. And I know that there are values that don't change, that are absolute. I'm not afraid to use the word absolute. God is absolute, and I'm with him, and I'm with his revealed word.
Well, that's a powerful message, and all the best to you for what you do at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and our friend Rabbi Abraham Cooper.
Thank you.